Morning.
Good morning, chatty people this morning. We have lots of items this morning to cover, so we're going to get started. This is our staff meeting of June the 2nd, and I'd like to call it to order. And our first item on the agenda is elder abuse. Connie Pillage, our prosecutor, is here to present. Welcome. Good morning.
A great pleasure for me to be here today to talk about Elder Abuse Awareness Month. Um, I know you have a very busy agenda, and I really appreciate you letting me speak this early in the month. Uh, the whole purpose of the Elder Abuse Awareness Month is to remind Ohioans that we have to be aware of what's going on with our seniors. They are prone to abuse of multiple different kinds, and they need to be able to be aware of how to spot it and to report it. Now, just as a reminder, across Ohio, local agencies field 100 calls of referrals each day, just in our state alone. And the National Council on Aging estimates that 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 60 have experienced abuse. I mean, that's a profound number. And from our part of the prosecutor's office, we do collaborate with law enforcement and with Adult Protective Services and the Council on Aging to prosecute crimes against seniors. But we also aim to focus on education and awareness as well as prevention. By making people aware, making their family members and friends aware, educating people on what to spot, this really helps us aid prevention of elder abuse. And on my slide up there, we do have a couple of bullets about types of elder abuse. It can be physical, sexual, psychological, as well as neglect, self-neglect, or neglect by others, abandonment, or financial exploitation. And probably everyone in this room has received some weird text or email or phone call that was a scam. And probably your neighbors receive them too. I get them all the time. Luckily, I can spot what a traffic ticket looks like, and I'm not going to be fooled by those. But not everybody's going to be paying attention that well, and especially our seniors, they can be very vulnerable. So this is growing and widespread. And because of this, I did expand our Elder Justice Unit this year. It has been operating as a financial fraud unit for about 25 years, and about 3 years ago took on the tagline of Elder Justice. I've expanded our personnel working on this because we have more crimes, and they are very, very complex. Just last week, we saw the property manager for a CMHA building who scammed tenants out of their rent, and some people were facing eviction. We saw another one with a privately held apartment building where, again, residents were scammed out of their scammed out of their rental payments, and many were facing eviction. So these things are not new, but they are increasingly complex, trying to trace everything through the different banking systems, whether it be money orders or Cash App or Venmo, whatever is used. So I just want to let you know, I'd love to hand out, I brought you each a little brochure we have for you to peruse at when you
Thank
can.
you. Thank you.
And for everyone else, I did leave a small number of those on the table by the door to this room, to this office. Just a reminder for everyone, because you might not be able to see it on the slide very well. If you suspect abuse or neglect, start with Adult Protective Services, 513-421-HELP. So that's 513-421-5433. And for suspected financial exploitation, contact my Elder Justice Unit hotline, 513-946-SCAM. That's 513-946-7226. And also, I want people to be aware that my office does do educational seminars. I have my top lawyer in my office who handles these types of crimes, who does these. He's excellent. and we'd be happy to respond to any request by any communities that you're aware of that might like this. And they would call the 513-946 scam number to set that up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I will pass it over to Vice President Reese, but I didn't know that purple was elder abuse color, and I happen to wear purple today.
Yeah,
So
good job.
Okay, Vice President Reese.
Yes, Madam Prosecutor, thanks for bringing this forward. Just want to highlight, just last week, we had our 513 Relief Bus Healthy Aging Summit, and we turned it to a summit this year because I said we wanted to make sure we're be able to have seniors ask questions and give answers. Now, they came out in inclement weather. They said it was going to be bad thunderstorms, and they said, will anybody come out? And we had over 500 seniors that came from across the county. We had help right there, and I see this as we be able to partner with your office. What we did have a fireside chat where we had Council on Aging and Meals on Wheels and SOACT and a couple others, pro seniors, and they talked about the fraud. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, they said one of the top fraud targets for seniors is what they call romance fraud, because of loneliness, and they come in, I love you, and by the way, sign over all your assets and homes. And then they also identified, because of AI now, they can have somebody call and sound like your child. And so they said, have a password with your family. So when the person calls, you say, well, what's the password? And then they'll mostly hang up the phone. But you're absolutely right, and I'm happy you have this elder justice unit. We kicked off our assistance program with Council on Aging for their utility bills. So we had Duke there, and right next to it, we had Council on Aging. You could apply. But it was like a one-stop for seniors, and of course, we had free eye exams and ear exams. So everything in one location.
That's awesome.
But we don't want it to stop there. So I would love for maybe connected with your office with our 513 relief bus, because we're going to a lot of stops. We've got Council on Aging on the bus. And one of the things I saw at Franklin County that they have under their board of county commissioners, they have a senior office. Now, of course, we don't have a lot of extra money, but we have resources. And one of the things I was thinking is coming together with you and other entities to have what we call a senior ombudsman, because it can be overwhelming. So seniors, what do I do? And they can kind of help. I know Council on Aging is one, but we have other components. So I'd love to work, maybe not for this year, but as we go into for what we're going to do next year, have you, Council on Aging, and us come together and see how we can, get this amplified more, have kind of a one-stop that can come in. We've got a portal, the 513 Relief portal. We've had over 200,000 people coming. We need to have that. So you're not going over here and over there, because like you said, it can be overwhelming. So my point is, I love this, and I would love for us, from our marketing people, to develop a toolkit for seniors. That would be a toolkit, because like you've got this brochure, then they've got a brochure, and if we had a toolkit for seniors that we could roll out, and like you said, here's a number, here's a website that you can easily understand, and it might be the front facing, and based on what it needs, it might direct them over to the elder unit, or it might direct them over to Council on Aging for something, but it'll be like a one place that they go to. And here's the toolkit. Here's the tips for, fraud, romance fraud. Here's the tips if elder abuse for families that could go and say, I've got my grandmother or father's being abused, maybe in one of the senior homes. So these are the kind of things, and I think would be good. So I just see this as the beginning of us being able to put our arms around it and providing easy access.
Thank you. And
and so-
it's very impressive what you've done with the 513 relief bus. I mean, getting out into the community, collaborating with all these different groups that exist to help. I mean, that's what we should be about. That's really important to our community safety.
That's great. Well, we'll pass this on so we can start maybe including it in some of the bus stops that we have coming up. I think to help get the brochure out when we see seniors, I think it'd be great. So thank you for all that you're doing, you and your office. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dreehouse.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the presentation, Madam Prosecutor. I appreciate it. I noticed that on the flyer, the suspected abuse for neglect contact, that is a JFS number, because obviously that resides under JFS. I don't think people realize that the county, through JFS, has focused a lot lately on children and the abuse happening there, but we also have this portion of the work dedicated to seniors that we've been doing for many years over at JFS. And so I don't know if you know the answer about what that partnership looks like when someone calls that phone number, gets somebody from the JFS staff, and what that kind of interaction is. And I guess I know it would depend obviously on what the elder abuse is. But I'm not as familiar with the senior portion, even though we've got a levy that supports this work through the Council on Aging and over in Jobs and Family Services. I just am wondering what that partnership with JFS looks like.
Well, it's very interesting. Some decades ago, I don't know when it happened, but the lawyers for JFS moved into the umbrella of the prosecutor's office. So a lot of the work they do, including in our Child Protection Division, is considered non-criminal action. It's considered civil, which means they're just trying to protect the victim. And that, of course, is the most important thing. That's the first stop. That's the first attention. But in situations where it does rise to the level of criminal conduct, then my criminal division gets involved. So it is a partnership. We try to do one step at a time.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the partnership is that robust and that close. Because as you say, this is a big issue. It's a growing issue in the community, not only because the population is expanding, but because the fraudsters are coming in more aggressively, trying to target these seniors. So yeah, I just wanted to get a better understanding of what that collaboration looks like. So thank you very much for raising the awareness, and we'll make sure you have the brochures available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The pamphlet is excellent, very succinct. I would just suggest maybe when you make the next batch to make the words a little bigger for the elders that are looking, but it's a great
It's
pamphlet.
hilarious.
You were saying earlier, Connie, Madam Prosecutor, that only have the crimes increased, but people are living longer. We are living longer, and the needs are greater. And so it's so great that you extended your Elder Justice Department. How many do you have in there?
We have 4 now.
4. Okay. And our older people want to be independent. We want them to be independent, and this is so necessary. So I'm so glad we were able to get you in, and this information is, hopefully people are watching, but we'll expand on it. So thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
And the Elder Justice Unit began with one guy.
Okay.
And one of our retired police officers who works for us, fielding a lot of the calls and starting to investigate the bank transfers and things like that. But there are more incidents, and it's just increasingly complex. And that's why I had to expand it. So
Absolutely.
thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is DDS Levy Annual Financial Update. Eric Landon, TLRC, and Lisa Webb, our Assistant County Administrator. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. As part of the Developmental Disabilities Continued Review by the Tax Levy Review Committee, one of the recommendations that came out of their review in 2004 was that the levy committee, conduct annual financial reviews of developmental disabilities levy fund and fund balance and usage of that balance. The first report of that was presented to the Commissioners in spring of 2025. Eric Landon, who is continuing to be the chair of that subcommittee, is here to present on the 2026 update. With that, I'll turn it over to him. Sure.
Commissioners, well, I have good news and bad news to start this off. The good news is that we're not asking for anything right now. The bad news, or the more challenging news, is that we do anticipate that DDS is going to require some additional funding. And we have a presentation, and this annual report is part of the procedures that we implemented after the 2024 levy recommendation to do annual reports to you all. So to go back, the DDS levy has been flat since 2010. So the DDS levy brings in about $79 million a year, and that's been pretty consistent with a little bit of variation, $1 million here or there over the course of the period since 2010. And what we've seen recently is a significant increase in the cost of the DDS mandated services. And just to add a further clarification, I'm here specifically to talk about DDS. I know you saw a lot of us 2 weeks ago talking about children's services. Obviously, this is a different levy. Next slide, please. So what we saw in 2024 was a significant buildup, and this was good, in the fund balance for DDS. And so DDS started 2025 with over $133 million fund balance. And the reason for that was a combination of factors. One of those is we saw during COVID a decrease in the demand for DDS services and an increase in the federal funds available to support those services. But in 2024, we saw an inflection point where that enhanced federal funding was scaled back. And we also saw state regulations significantly increase the cost of, think about it as each unit of DDS services. Prior to that, frankly, the service provider hourly rate was quite low. That resulted in some significant challenges for retention for those folks that are actually providing those on-the-ground services to our fellow Hamilton County residents who require those DDS services. And so those costs went up. And then in addition to that, we saw an increasing number of people who were requiring those services. So therefore, in 2025, and beyond, what we're seeing is a higher per person cost, higher waiver costs, and state pressures in terms of them requiring these mandates, but not providing the support for these services. So the result of all that is we are seeing a significant reduction in that fund balance that was quite healthy at the beginning of 2025, and now we're seeing that being eaten away. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we see an increase, and this goes to the cost of the services in the individual Medicaid waivers. And I'd just like to take a moment to explain Medicaid waivers because that is a quite confusing term. The reason it's called a Medicaid waiver is because those individuals who qualify for services are waiving their right for institutional care. There is a good policy of wanting people to be in the community and receive services in the community. But what that means is once they waive that institutional care, then DDS is burdened with providing the local match for those waiver services. And as you can see, in 2019, we were at $32,000 for those local services, and in 2025, we're at over $54,000 a year. And that is the local match for those Medicaid waiver services. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that the $54,000 is a local match. With that $54,000, we unlock about $95,000 in overall funding, but it's still quite burdensome. So there's about $150,000 that comes in our community to support those services, but the local match is about $54,000 of that. Next slide,
What
please.
is the IO waiver? I heard you say Medicare waiver. What is
So they're Medicaid waivers, and that is individual opportunity, individual options.
options? Okay.
Individual options waiver. And
Alrighty.
that is, there are a few different types of waivers, but those IO waivers, there are two things to know about those. One is they're the most expensive. And two, if there's an immediate need and that's, based on the criteria that DDS has to implement, then that is a required mandated service that has to be provided.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide, please. So as a result of these trends, you can see that yellow line on the graph, the top of the yellow, and those are the levy funds that have been brought in since 2010 at the current millage rate at about $79 million a year, give or take a few $1,000,000. You will see that by 2029, that the levy funds will be fully devoted to just paying those Medicaid waiver match costs. So there won't be any money left for the two schools that DDS runs to provide services to the students with most acute needs, where our local school districts, they'll send the kids there and pay tuition to DDS in order to help those students who really can't be helped in their local school district. So these are the trends that we started seeing when we looked into and dug into the DDS levy in 2024. Again, we had this dichotomy where there was a significant buildup in funds. However, there was also we could see how that buildup in funds was being exhausted over the course of the 5-year levy cycle, starting in January 2025 and running through December 2029. Next slide, please. So last year we had DDS take certain actions. We met with them. They could see the trends. We could see the trends. And so we encouraged them and told them that they needed to implement certain cost reductions in order to preserve these funds that were built up. And so what they did is staff reductions, increased billing, reduced grant and discretionary contract and discretionary spending, enhanced authorization tools, and increased use of non-levy local funds to meet current needs. So that's what they did in 2025. And obviously, we are asking them to reduce their spending while preserving the services as much as possible. In 2026, they took further action to continue to manage their vacancies, to increase the school tuition, ongoing reductions in their contracts and discretionary spending. And then you can see the rest of the list. And then in particular, I want to highlight that the waiver enrollment was limited to those with immediate needs. And that's where you really get to that point of mandated versus non-mandated services. They've done office consolidation and they have an ongoing group home conversion. Also something that commissioners, you may or may not be aware of, but there are two properties that they're in the process of selling. So the proceeds from those sales will result in a one-time infusion of cash, but they're also aware of that, is they're consolidating their operations at the center, the county building in Norwood. Next slide, please. So here's the result of the reductions. Once they're fully implemented, DDS is anticipating a $5 to $9 million a year reduction based on those actions that they have taken. Next slide. So here's the chart that we keep going back to, and this chart evolves each year. The number in the upper left-hand corner doesn't change. That's static. That's where we started at the beginning of 2025. The number that changes is the number in the lower right-hand corner. And we have seen the numbers on that ending cash balance do two things. We've seen them become red starting in 2028, and we've seen the number in the lower right-hand corner become a larger negative number is we've gone into this 5-year levy cycle. So that is the thing that we are watching like a hawk. Is the most important number is where they are at the end of this 5-year, anticipated to be at the end of this 5-year levy cycle. And then from there, we dig in and look at what is driving those numbers and causing these costs to increase in that fund balance to be exhausted. And we found that that is really driven by the mandated services, and the subset of those mandated services that's driving those costs the most is the cost of the Medicaid waiver match. Next slide. So here's the division of the mandated versus non-mandated services. You keep hearing me say Medicaid and Medicaid waiver. That is a mandated services along with their case management, their eligibility and intake and waiver enrollment. And one thing we saw going back 5 or 6 years is that there was a significant waiting list for DDS services. And in a prior levy cycle, DDS was told they needed to get that waiting list, down to 0, and they've done that. But as a result of that, their increased costs is they processed those people and started providing services to more and more people. But you see the mandated services on the left side. On the right side are the non-mandated services. And these are, I would also add that a lot of these non-mandated services, even though they're not mandated, many of them are also preventative and are good investments in the future to reduce the cost and the burden on DDS. But they are not mandated, and obviously we need to be sensitive to what DDS has to spend versus the additional services they provide to our fellow Hamilton County residents. Next slide, please. So the bottom line on this is we anticipate that DDS will need to go on the ballot in November 2028 instead of November 2029. And we do anticipate that DDS will likely need an increase in their millage at that point. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering on the last page, the recommendation, you said it needs to be considered for November 2028, but you didn't indicate that and also an increase. You just said that, but I was just wondering why you didn't put it on here.
We should. That was, we were saying it needs to be considered. There's a whole TLRC process that if we, if the direction from the commissioners is to proceed in 2028, then we would kick off that process in January 2028. Part of it is that we don't know how much an increase would be, and we know that it needs. We anticipate that it needs to go on the ballot in November 2028. We just aren't in a position to answer the question of how much of that would be an increase at that point.
Yeah, not asking for specifics, but it's almost obvious to me that it would have to be an increase. But I'll open it up. Lisa, did you want to?
I was just going to say, Commissioner, you're absolutely right, and we probably should have put an increase in, that it would be going on at an increase to be determined. The key messaging there, though, was that the levy needed to be considered for the ballot in November of 28 versus November of 29.
Thank you. Vice President Reese.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank TLRC for all your volunteerism on these issues. It's really tough. I want to share what I'm hearing from the citizens of Hamilton County. Just talked about the senior event, and their number one issue with over 500 plus seniors, who 85% of them are homeowners that were there, is property taxes. Now, these are issues that normally these folks are our allies. They pass these levies at 90% and those kind of things. I am a little disappointed that we're dealing with the children's levy and we haven't gotten that done, and people are concerned about raising their taxes. Even though they get to vote, they don't get to vote on options. It's an all or nothing. We determine the all, and they determine if it's going to be all or nothing. We give them one choice. We do not give them options. So to say it's up in the hands of the voters, you put their backs against the wall and say, I might want to help a little bit, but I can't help this. The other thing is we keep using data that is outdated. If you go down to the auditor's office, I think it's downstairs, they don't have $100,000 value homes anymore. So to say it's based on 100,000, that was good when we were doing it 20 years ago. We were using that number. But to use that number in these times when the reevaluations that we do not control have gone through the roof, that's what everybody's mad about. That I came in and how in the world, I didn't do any fixing up, and my house now is worth $300,000 or more. I don't know. Maybe there might be one shack or whatever, and if it's 100,000, it's probably in the land bank. Nobody's living in it. So we have to be real. We can't come with 20-year-old processes and tactics. It doesn't work. We're going into AI now. It don't work. So I'm very, very concerned that I don't want to have every week we come in here Tuesday talking about a levy. Because now you got this one levy, already people are shaking. And then we come back and this levy talking about we need more money in 28. You're going to lose the people. So I hope that, Mr. Ludo, that this doesn't become every Tuesday, it's a levy of more money, more money, more. We're going to lose the people because they're going to get confused about this levy. And they're going to say, well, wait a minute, I thought you had this one. So this can't be the meeting of levies every week. Now, maybe you said 28. 28's a long way away. Maybe the economy going to recover. Maybe we get a change in leadership in Washington. Maybe we get something. But we can't come with a 28 plan today when people are trying to survive in 2026. And I'm going to be real because I got to be real because I'm supposed to be representing the people, not just a government entity. The bottom line is Duke Energy, big article. I hate they use the word commissioners. That's one thing I don't like about commissioners. Everybody, there's 1,000 commissioners. They don't know which commissioner. You got a commissioner over here, commissioner over there. My other positions, it was kind of like only 2 people could have those titles. But they have a headline, and they say commissioners. I want to be clear, it ain't us. But they getting ready to go to the PUCO to get for another increase. Grandma and them cannot afford it, even though these are good causes. Middle-class families cannot afford it, even though these are good causes. So I don't want us to get out there and they say, every time I turn on Hamilton County, they come in with some more taxes. So I hope that this meeting is not a meeting every Tuesday to talk about more taxes. Now, if it's 28, get with me next year when we can look at something. Or we can meet privately and try to work some numbers and sharpen the pencils. But we on a day-to-day budget now because we don't know how the world's going to shift. I'm praying that gas won't be $5 a gallon. Maybe it won't in 28. So people say, I got a little bit more, I can help. I'm hoping that jobs will show up. And maybe in 28, everybody got a job. Not everybody losing a job now. And this is not about the super poor. This is about squeezing everyday folks. We getting squeezed out there. Can't make nothing. And seniors are on fixed income, but not on fixed expenses. And I got to say that because when I was there, that's what they was telling me. We got people, teachers that retired and put their money away and they supposed to have a pension and this and that. And now they saying they getting squeezed. They got to get a job at Walmart. So I just hope if it's something that's not something I got to do today, something I got to do in this budget, I would like to put a hold on it and get our pencil together when we get ready to we do a budget every year. It's in December. And then we can start. But I don't want people to get confused. They're watching this. They say, oh, Lord, Duke Energy getting more money. They're going to charge me more. Oh, Lord, children's levy's coming. I love the children, but I'm 2 months behind on my mortgage. Oh, Lord, now you saying I got this. I'd certainly support people with disabilities. But, if it's 28, they kind of got to We'll talk about it. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, others will say, well, we got to do proper planning. We can't do no planning in this economy. We got Washington, you can't do no planning. You go to bed, you wake up, it's something else. There's no such thing as 5-year plans no more. That's out the door. After COVID, that's COVID taught us we got day to day. Some people was alive yesterday, they dead today. Some people had a job yesterday, a big career, and they got rid of their whole department. If you was making $200,000 and you lose a job, you ain't gonna get a job tomorrow making $200,000. It takes us, even with us, we take it forever to hire people. 3, 4 months, 4 or 5 interviews. A person to go out of business waiting to find out, did they get hired? It's getting rough, and it's getting rougher. And I'm just telling you, because I just came from these seniors, and they said, you can ask the Council on Aging, the number one issue, unfortunately, it's not elder abuse. Unfortunately, it's not the scam calls. They said the number one is property taxes. Now, I would love, and I'm going to ask Mr. Ludo to check on this. I told him I want it in writing. Can we get something on the ballot that would exempt seniors who are 70 years older? I need the TLRC. I need y'all to be more creative because you guys are geniuses. We got to find a new way. We cannot do it just on property tax. It's coming to an end. It's going to eventually come to an end. Might not get us this time, might not get us next time, but it's coming. So we got to find the rubber band is going to break. So it's not about, Commissioner Reese, can you go out here and sell to the people? No, I'm not selling. If the milk is bad, I ain't going to tell them to drink no bad milk. But I want to get a way that I can go out there and tell them, you can do this and keep your house. So don't come and tell me it's $18. Every time they say it's $5, I get a bill and I say, Duke, you said this was only going to be $5 more. How in the world? Y'all got me up to $200 more. It's just like a cell phone. Add this on for $2.50. Then you get the bill. How the heck is this $300? Same way with cable TV. Oh, just add your telephone for $1.50. I get the bill. I said, how'd I go from $1.50 to $500? So we got to be real. Now, I'm an ally. We got others that are allies. But we losing. If we got everybody 70 and up that we know vote, we know they go to vote. They don't miss an election. We got a problem. So this is not Democrat or Republican or everything. I'm telling you, they don't care who you are. They can say, oh, it's the state, but the state ain't doing nothing. And then we got to put it on the ballot, and then they looking at us. And then if they say no, all of a sudden we sharpen the pencil. Well, we think we can get it done. Let's sharpen ahead of time. And you might already doing that, but we got to think outside the box. So I just wanted to say that, and I want to say to my colleagues, I don't want to come in here every Tuesday, and it's a levy. I don't want that every Tuesday. I don't want to come here every Thursday, there's a levy. Because I don't want the people to think every time I turn them on, and then we come and get big projects. Fort Washington Way, $25 million, and we got bingo stadiums ready to go. People, I don't care if it's different pots of money, it's all the taxpayer money, because we use sales tax money. So the people are tired of hearing that we got money over here, and then when it's time to help the seniors, the people with disabilities, the children, we up here talking about we broke. So we just have to get our messaging together, get our numbers together, and I'm hopeful, might be wrong, but we don't know what's going to happen in November. Maybe that stuff might change. Let's see. Don't bring me nothing today. I'm like, now, I don't need you to text me and say, Commissioner Reese, you paid your bill this month, but let me tell you, 2 months from now, I don't care about 2 months. I got this month, and I'll catch you on next month. And hopefully something will shape between this month and next month. That's how people are living. So I just want to be honest with what I heard, what I'm hearing, because I don't want our stuff to go down. I want us to stay united as a county and be able to be a county to help children, help people with disabilities, help people go to the hospital, I want to be able to do those things. But we got to do better. So I told Mr. Ludo about this when he met with me, I said, I can't come every week. We got a levy. And then we'll have a budget on Thursday. Millions of dollars we spending. Stadiums and everything else to the average person. It's not my job to convince them. They've sent me here. So if it's not clear to them, that means it ain't going down. So those are the things I wanted to say when I saw this on here. Appreciate y'all looking out, but a lot can happen between now and 2028. A lot can happen between now and November. I'm praying. And maybe the economy will shake. Maybe the gas prices will go down. Maybe some jobs will show up. And maybe we'll have some more money. Maybe we'll bring some more events, conventions, and concerts, and we have some more money in the thing. But we got to be on the making money side if we're going to fund all these things. So that's what I wanted to say. I told Mr. Ludo that I wanted to put my colleagues, we don't get to talk to each other. And I'm making it plain. This is what I'm hearing. I don't care if you're black, you're white, older people, middle class people telling me, Reese, I'm squeezed. I need some relief. And now with Duke Energy, we should be having a resolution to the PUCO today, talking about no, we can't afford it down here. More gas. I don't care if your infrastructure is bad. It was good enough to be charging me all these years. Keep the old infrastructure. The air conditioner working, the heat working. We ain't got money for it. That's what I would want to be on. So just wanted to say that because people will get confused. They won't see 28. They'll see, oh, Lord, here they come again. But I appreciate you giving it. TLRC just needs your help. We got to think futuristic. If the people turn their backs, what can we do? So that's all I have.
And Vice President Reese, if I could say, on behalf of the TLRC, we are always looking for what are better solutions because, frankly, we understand the burden on taxpayers. We're taxpayers. That's why you and the county commissioners nominated us to the TLRC. So we are always aware of that, and we're always looking for solutions that don't involve increasing the burden on taxpayers. But at the same time, we also have to, I think our task as the TLRC is also to understand those expenses and be able to talk in an informative way and present to you all, because I think that's part of our job is to give you, the cold reality, if that's what we're seeing, is part of our work.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that, and I appreciate it. What I'm looking for is some consultants that could come with some new ways. I understand we can't cut our way to prosperity. We can't do it. But these consultants getting all this money, and I just think our tactics, we've been doing it this way for 20 years. We bring in a consultant. We have great people on the TLRC. You're volunteering your time. We appreciate it. But I need some consultants that could come with some new stuff. It's just like they looking for new technology. I'm looking for consultants with some new ways. And so as we're looking to hire people and so forth, maybe that's something to consider, a consultant to look at what's the future of levies and what can we do is what I'm looking for out there. And I don't put that on the TLRC. I'm just saying on the consulting side, I'm looking for something different, a new strategy. And I'm sure other places are looking the same. Whoever comes up with it will be deemed a genius, and everybody will be running to their counties and figure out how they did it. But I want to put that on the table. I don't do the RFPs. I don't put what we're looking for. I don't do any of that, but I just think in the RFP of what we're looking for, maybe that could be a category that's added. And I would say that I've talked to Lisa about that in the future. So thank you all very much. It's a tough job. I appreciate y'all volunteering and all that. And I appreciate the taxpayers all these years who have said, we will sacrifice, we will fund it. And I'm just trying to make sure we don't lose those allies that's been with us, been strong with us, been shoulder to shoulder, and who said we will pay. I want them to continue to feel that way. But circumstances, obviously, are a little bit different. So that was it. Thank you.
Commissioner Driehaus.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Landon, for being here and presenting on behalf of the TLRC. Thank you to Gwen McFarland, who's also in the room, and Lisa Webb, who organizes all the work. We are just very grateful for the service that you provide to the county by way of your volunteer hours. And I know it's many, many meetings and public hearings and listening to the public about their concerns. So thank you for what you do. Appreciate the presentation. I've got a couple questions for you. When you were talking about the waivers, are you saying that there are more people coming into the system because there is no waiting list at this point for the waivers?
The waiting list was an issue on the past levy, so not the levy review in 2024, but it was previously an issue. So, but by maintaining minimal numbers on those waiting lists and granting waivers to those who qualify to have immediate needs, that increases the cost.
So are there more people than getting those waivers in Hamilton County?
There are. Okay. There was significant increase in 2025. There were 130 people in 2025 that were added to the Medicaid waiver list, and that represented a year-to-year 43% increase in the size of those increased numbers.
Okay. I'm just trying to better understand the increase in expenses, and I think you answered that in part. I know that's part of the equation, but an important part related to the waivers. So thank you for the answer to that. The other question, you mentioned the schools and the 2 schools that we have for students with disabilities. Do you know what the cost is to the levy for, because you mentioned education dollars going into that, which is not our cost, but obviously there are other costs associated with those 2 schools. Do you know what the costs are for those schools?
I'm going to defer to the DDS superintendent, Leah Snyder, who's here as well. I would also add, just while she's walking up here, on the waivers, specifically in the waiting list, the state made a decision a few years back that county DDS boards were no longer allowed to maintain those wait lists. And so the DDS board spent a couple years evaluating the individuals that were on that waiting list to make those determinations, and that did lead to increases in the number of individuals on those waivers.
So we just heard a little bit about the context here about these levies that we continue to struggle with. And I'm just going to say once again, there are decisions being made at the state level that are impacting local expenses and the need to run these levies with increases. These are not decisions that the county commissioners are making, but rather decisions that are being made elsewhere, and they're costing the taxpayers in Hamilton County money. So you said it, we've heard this over and over again with children's services as well. So I just want to point it out because it's true, and we have very little control over what is happening in Columbus at the moment. So thank you. So the question about the schools.
Yes, so about $3 million in levy funds goes towards the school that's not funded through any other mechanism. So we do charge tuition and we receive some state funding for school services. The remaining balance that impacts the levy fund is about $3 million a year.
And so what is then the trend of the population of kids in the schools? What should we expect by way of that $3 million cost?
So over the last probably 10 years, we've seen a reduction in the number of students, but we're serving the students with the most significant needs. Students who have either very medically complex needs, who aren't able to be served in their district, or behavioral challenges along with some cognitive needs as well. So we consider ourselves the safety net. It's truly for the students with the most significant needs who have not been successfully served within their school districts.
Okay, thank you for that. This is so resonant of the Children's Services Levy. I mean, we're serving, actually in that one, we're serving more kids, but the acute needs are driving the cost of care. So it sounds very familiar when you say that. Thank you for the answer to that question. So I appreciate you bringing this in front of us. The timing is not great because we're struggling with another levy for this year. And so it is really challenging to wrap your head around now another levy that eventually will be coming, right? Not yet, I understand, but the timing is it's difficult because I think people are feeling overwhelmed. I know I am related to all these levy conversations. But the flip of that is that we need to know what's going on. And we need to know what to anticipate. And we need to have all the information in front of us as early as possible so that we can start thinking through decisions and that the departments are thinking through decisions. We saw this with Children's Services too. We had to make $36 million worth of cuts because we know the information in advance and we know those cuts are necessary to not fall into the red. So you're doing the same thing here. You've made the cuts. I know you're continuing to make cuts. And so this is the planning piece that is important to get us to where we need to be eventually to stabilize this fund. So I appreciate the look forward. It's challenging timing. We haven't gotten much relief from the state, and we've asked. They've done some things, and I don't want to lose track of this idea that they did some reform. We're paying for it, by the way. They're not paying for any of it. But we are paying for some of the reforms they made so that these spikes that we have seen in the recent past don't happen again. So that will provide relief to people, but they didn't do anything when it comes to immediate relief to create a circuit breaker so you only spend part of your income or a certain portion of your income for property taxes. They didn't expand the homestead exemption so more people would qualify for some relief. They didn't do what people expect them to do by way of relief, and they have the money to do it. So I think that's my frustration, is that we have a partner who is pushing down unfunded mandates in many different ways. They're not doing what they can do by way of relief, and we're the ones left with the cost, with talking to the citizens to try to understand these issues. I mean, it's just a sad situation when the partnership isn't working like it should, and it's not. So anyway, but the information's good. It's very helpful. Really appreciate. I know this is a lot of work with all of these levies, and in the partnership with DD, with the administration, with the TLRC, and eventually with the county commissioners is really important to all of it. So thanks again. Really appreciate it, and we'll look to see you more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few comments. Thank you so much for bringing the information forward. That was my concern with the children's levy. I think it should have come sooner than it did as far as information for our residents, but I thank you for this. It is very reminiscent of the children's levy and what we're talking about, providers' costs going up, services going up. Just a couple comments. I looked on actions taken by DDS, which were great actions to reduce spending. One thing I didn't see on actions implemented in 2026, nothing that really indicated. Who's up? Who's up? You up? Who's going to? Okay, whatever the question or comment.
We're all ready.
How you plan on increasing the revenue? I didn't see that in that component of implement. You looked at how you reduce expenses, which is great, but nothing really showing how you plan on increasing the revenue. That's not really a question, just a comment. So all of your strategies were good. That you implemented to try to help. But maybe, I don't know, grants, there are not a lot of grants out there, some out there, and whenever I see them, I pass them on to whoever I think can use them. But how do we go about increasing the revenue to do some of the things ourselves? And lastly, for me, mandated versus non-mandated services. It's obvious to me the state doesn't get it. They just don't get it. And that's why they're not funding us, because I'm looking at mandated, and most of the state mandated stuff is they want to get money back, eligibility intake, required administrative functions, and all these non-funded mandates. But these mandates to the right are what we need to keep the children out of the system. Early intervention, school-related services, family support, employment, mental health, and community inclusion and outreach. They don't get it. Why? I mean, they mandated these other ones that we have to do. But if we don't do these other non-mandated, we're going to have more children on the roads than we ever had. So, we're asking them for more money. Why don't they fund us more? And they just don't get it. How do they get it? We need people up there that can make them get it. And so when we do that, we just have to advocate, lobby, and just, have the right people in the right place. So other than that, that's about all I have. And certainly, I don't see us having it on the agenda anytime soon. But you were talking about possibly an early levy in 28, and we'll see how that goes. But I thank you for letting us know in the front end of it. So thank you so much for your work. I'm done. We're done. Sure, if you'd like to. I didn't want to put you on the spot or.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I thought I would respond to your comments about the revenue because that is something that we're taking very seriously. Every single billing stream that we have available to us, we've increased. Some of them up to 50%. So that includes some federal billing streams. We've been really attentive to that. We've aggressively sought out any grant revenue, and we have been successful in securing a lot of that. We're always very careful because grant revenue can add responsibility. So we're making sure that it's things we're doing anyway, using that grant funding to offset some of that cost rather than adding new responsibilities to our docket. And then the other thing that we do is partner very closely with community partners to make sure that we're never duplicating services. If somebody else in the community is providing something, we partner with them, we support what they're doing, and we make sure that our people have access to those supports. And so that's another way that we can make sure that we're only spending funding where there are gaps. And then we have increased school tuition. We know that schools are also facing financial pressures, but the cost to educate students has grown, and we have increased our revenue in that to offset some of that cost.
That's great. And a lot of those grants, you have to have matching funds and things like that, which we don't often have. So thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Okay. Next, we have 2025 home recommendations. Angela Rahman, and you have, okay, from Community and Economic Development. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Tanya Hill, and I'm a program manager within Community and
That's why I looked at you. I said,
Yeah, that's not Angela. Yeah, I'll just introduce my own self. That's okay.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, again, my name is Tanya Hill, and I am a program manager within Community and Economic Development Department. And today I am presenting the 2025 Home Investment Partnership Program funding recommendations as recommended by the Community Development Advisory Committee. Home Investment Partnership Program is the largest federal block grant to state and local governments designed exclusively to create affordable housing for low-income households. Home funds are used for a wide variety of activities, which include construction, acquiring, and/or rehabilitating housing for both rent or homeownership, providing direct rental assistance, and also providing direct assistance for home buyers. Hamilton County's total 2025 home fund allocation is $1.5 million. HUD requires 15% be set aside for projects by community housing development organizations, also known as CHODOs, and up to 10% can be used for administration. Hamilton County received approximately $1.3 million in home funding, which was programmed via our annual action plan as approved by the board in June of 2025. As part of the county's allocation plan, the board authorized $1.2 million to provide for CHODO project set aside and general entitlement. CED staff added an additional $400,000 of unawarded funds from program year 2024 to this amount for a grand total of approximately $1.6 million to award in this round of funding. The Community and Economic Development Department issued one competitive RFP for these funds, whereas CED staff plans to issue a second round of funding in summer 2026. The next few slides describe the award recommendations being shared today. This RFP has $1.6 million in available funding, with a total request amount of $1.8 million. We received a total of 7 applications, 2 of which are recommended for funding by CDAC. This slide summarizes the Community Development Advisory Committee's, also known as CDAC's, funding recommendations for program year 2025. Following staff review, an underwriting analysis conducted by Grow America, and multiple meetings with both staff and Community Development Advisory Committee, CDAC recommended funding for 2 homeownership projects totaling $675,000. The first recommendation is $300,000 for Habitat for Humanity of Greater Cincinnati's affordable housing program. These funds will support the construction of 5 new affordable single-family homes in Springfield Township. The overall project budget is approximately $1.4 million. The second recommendation is for $375,000 for Homesteading and Urban Redevelopment Corporation, commonly known as HERC. These funds will support the construction of an additional 5 new affordable single-family homes located in Mount Healthy. The overall project budget is approximately $1.9 million. Together, these projects will create 10 new affordable home ownership opportunities for income-eligible households within Hamilton County. Both organizations demonstrated strong development capacity, project readiness, and alignment with home program requirements. In addition to these recommendations, CDAC separately recommended $185,000 in home funds for CMHA's tenant-based rental assistance program. Because this activity differs from traditional housing development and focuses on housing stabilization and eviction prevention, it is presented separately within this recommendation package. The recommended projects represent a balanced investment strategy that advances both affordable homeownership opportunities while ensuring home funds are directed towards projects that are ready to proceed and capable of meeting federal program requirements and long-term affordability obligations. This slide summarizes the applications that were reviewed but unfortunately not recommended for funding during program year 2025 home funding cycle. While several of these proposals address important housing needs within Hamilton County, the Community Development Advisory Committee evaluated each application based on criteria established in the home RFP, which include project readiness, financial feasibility, eligibility under home regulations, organizational capacity, project scope, and the ability to successfully complete the project within HUD required timelines. First, LAC Properties requested $300,000 to support rehabilitation activities at the St. Francis Seminary Senior Housing Development located in Springfield Township. Although CDAC recognized the importance of preserving affordable senior housing, the application raised concerns related to project readiness, financial feasibility, and the level of supporting documentation necessary to fully evaluate the proposed rehabilitation scope. However, the committee encourages the applicant to continue developing the project and consider applying during a future funding round. Next, National Church Residencies requested $750,000 for the Forest Park Square development. However, the applicant voluntarily withdrew the request after the City of Forest Park elected not to support the proposed project. As a result, the project was not considered for funding recommendation. The remaining applications were submitted by individual applicants seeking home assistance for single-unit housing activities. While staff appreciated the applicant's interest in expanding homeownership opportunities, these requests did not meet the minimum eligibility requirements established under the Home Investment Partnership Program, and therefore could not be recommended for funding. These recommendations were developed following multiple CDAC review meetings, underwriting analysis, applicant follow-up discussions and/or visits, and additional project evaluations conducted by Community and Economic Development staff. The committee's goal was to ensure that limited home resources were directed towards projects that demonstrated readiness as well as compliance with federal requirements and greatest likelihood of successful implementation. At this time, no legislative action is necessary by the board. However, contracts with each awarded agency will require board action once terms are agreed upon. Thank you again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to program year 2025 home recommendations.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think I'll open it up this time. one thing is that the reasons for not funding, if we can have that in writing, that would be great. I appreciate your presentation of why. If we could get that in writing, we started doing that and it's working very well.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So we had $675,000 that we said yes to, and then the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing with the 185, we took it out of a different fund. Is that what you were saying?
It will still come out of the fund of home for 2025. So that would be in addition to the 675.
Okay,
Yes,
that's what I thought.
for the
Okay.
1.6 total.
Okay, and I guess hopefully my final comment is you were saying that the other entities did not meet the RFP.
Yes.
So this is a bigger issue for me. We have 1.6 million, and we only did the 675 and then the 185. I see she went to the back, but we have to figure out a way. I don't know if the RFP is not. We have to go by what HUD says, and we have to meet those criteria and all that. But there's no way for me. These people are, these agencies are asking for monies, and do we need to look at what we're asking for? So we have 1.6 million to allocate to people to build these different properties, and we're not doing it. And I'm not saying you guys aren't doing it. Maybe they didn't meet the needs that they were supposed to do, but something needs to be different. We don't want to violate, of course, anything that HUD needs, you know, ready to start and prepared and all that, prepared to build. But this doesn't make me feel good at all.
Right.
Go on.
Yes, I can speak to that a little bit. So I believe that the answer here is probably a two-part answer. So first, the first part of that would be the understanding of the home funds and how they can be allocated. You have to at least serve 4 units. So it can be a 4-family home, or it can be 4 separate scatter sites, which we are seeing like done by the applicants that we are awarding, recommendation, I should say. The second part to that is the applications that did not meet that standard. Majority of those looked as if they had interest in development for another individual. The other applications were specifically for down payment assistance, is what the application looked like. So from that, what we did learn is that there's clearly a need for that. So we have been having like internal conversations about potentially during the second round, or if not during 2026 funding, which will hopefully be in early fall, having an agency, or not, if we can't do it within in-house, down payment assistance utilization through the home funds. So to address that. So we did discover that need. I think that the marketing efforts in relation to our home funds RFP this round sparked new interest. So that's why I think we had a lot of individuals who just didn't necessarily understand what the application was for.
And so the timeline on approval, you were saying we don't have to do anything now, but when do you guys have to let HUD know who you chose, and what's the timeline?
Yes, that's a great question. So the next step in the process is for the program manager to reach out to the applicants and start working with our prosecutor office in order to come to an agreement of a contract. And then at that point, we will bring the contract back before you all and have it hopefully approved.
Okay. So we had 7 entities that applied, and we were able to help 2 of them. And I understand what you were saying. Some of them did not meet the criteria. So so there's no opportunity actually to go out again and ask again. This is like, because I know HUD is slow. So we have what we have, and there's nothing we can do about the list that we have. We can't really send another RFP out.
Yes, so that is the plan. We actually are in the approval stages of a second round for 2025, which should come out in the next couple months, I should say. So the goal is summer. In relation to your question, as far as not all of the applications were a no. There was one in particular that we did favor, but it just was not ready. And after it did go through underwriting, it was determined, because we do have to purchase that fee. So it was determined that not right now, basically, for that applicant, but we would love to work with them in order to, preserve. Building new is expensive right now, but preserving our existing housing stock is also very important, and that was a rehabilitation project, and that's the senior housing it's located in Springfield Township. So in relation to your question, I would love to see that project grow, and potentially maybe even more than what they asked. From my personal conversations with them in person, they did try to err more on the caution side and ask for only 300,000, but it did seem that there may be an opportunity to spend more there. So a second round, I believe that we should have efforts to go back to them and kind of help them before we send it to Grow America for underwriting, if we don't do the underwriting in-house.
That's great. Yeah, and I know you guys are great with TA, technical assistance. So
Yes.
that's great. Vice President Reese.
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm looking at the report that was sent to us through Mr. Aludo, and it has some of the reasonings. So that's good to have this in writing. But one thing I do want to, since we got new leadership in this department or division, one of the things that we were looking at is an interactive map. I want to keep that on the table because we're doing a lot with affordable housing. And right now, affordable housing is the buzzword. We always got a buzzword. And it's just like it buzzes in, it buzzes out. And there's people who've been in this space forever when it was not necessarily popular. And affordability is different levels of it. So I want to make sure that that's on the table because we as a board have been, I think, very bold with a lot of money, over 60 million, not to mention the community block grant dollars. And so I want to get a holistic, so we're out there holistically, how many units with everything have we created? What we need a narrative on what we've done as affordable housing because we've been kind of piecemealing it together. So I'd like to have that so that we can have, it's more than 60 million. That's just with one entity. With that being said, I also want the partners because we have had from my own investigation of the county that's been around for over 200 years. The county in the past has been a place where people come, they get the funding, the people who know, the people who don't know don't get a chance because they don't know, and we have tried to change that. But one thing that we do a lot of money, and then we get beat up as we haven't done anything, and the people who got the money, they promote their organization as though they did it. And the ending of we got two involvements. We vote for the money, and then the next thing we get a little ribbon. And there's a whole bunch of people with a little ribbon, and we get one scissor. I want to give more evidence, more long-term evidence. If we walked around 10 years from now, I want to know, what did Hamilton County do?
Yes, and I can also speak to that just a little bit. Yes. I'm sorry to cut you off there. So in relation to trying to get out the word of what, our investments in some of these projects, here recently we have been pulling our marketing team in on our closings for instance, Habitat for Humanity. So I would be happy to share that invitation to you all to also come. But our presence has not been something, you are exactly right, that has been done historically. But here recently, we have been more on site for those ribbon cuttings and property dedications, and they are very moving because you get the homeowner there, et cetera. So I think that would be a great event for you all to join as well.
I want to go beyond that as a marketer myself. I want to see, because that says the county. Now, when you go to Franklin, you came from Franklin County. Anything in Franklin County that's under the board, it's the board.
Right.
It's not, Franklin County did it. And because Hamilton County is everybody got our name, everybody. And it might not be under us. But if the board got to vote on something, I've said this to Mr. Aludo, when I noticed with Franklin County, when Commissioner Kevin Boyce, when he votes on something, when that board is the board, it ain't the county just happened to do it. So I think you all have done a good job inviting us. We've been in some things, but I want to find something that when the hand clap is over and someone comes to us, I can't remember, we got a bunch of houses everywhere. I want to make sure we know what was the dent, what was the investment, and I want to make sure the organization knows. See, the organizations, they come, I'm not saying any of these, but in the past, other organizations come, they say, oh man, they really did it. And the board is nowhere to be found, that we have to face the voters. We even had, I think we had voted on something, and some people came up here to speak at one of the meetings and jumped up, y'all ain't done nothing for affordable housing. And everybody gets a mom. So I'm looking for whatever that might be available. I know some of these organizations, they put placards on the little things where we want to be involved in that. And it's the board. It's not just, we got a lot of Hamilton counties that we don't control. So that we know that we, not just us, but the voters, the people, know that we're taking this very serious and we're doing all that we can do. Of course, we want to do more, but this board has been very bold, more than any other board on affordable housing, really more than any elected entity in terms of our investment. When we show up with one scissor and they show up with one scissor, it doesn't matter if you put 60 million in or 60 cents. It's just one pair of scissors. So, and if people don't think of us, we have been even accused, y'all ain't done nothing on affordable housing. I'm thinking, what? So I just want y'all to start thinking, and there may be some other ways. I'm not looking for an answer today, but we want things we can point to. If somebody say, y'all ain't done, I can point, go over here, go over there, go over here. Because people, when they see something, they have a different attitude versus what they might have heard. So, but anyway, I think this is good. Your explanations on the others seem to be sufficient, and I'll be willing to move forward with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Driehaus.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I too have a concern that we had the 1.6 available, spent 860 of it, and have 740 left. That's a lot. That's a lot to have left. And I understood the explanation about why the remaining projects either were disqualified, they took themselves out, or they weren't ready. So I understand the explanation, but this is the second time this has happened recently where we had some money left over. And so it makes me wonder if the process that we are using to solicit these folks to like bid or apply for these dollars is somehow not, it's not conveying the right message, right? People that aren't eligible should probably know they're not eligible before they apply, right? And I wonder, I too worry about I don't like to leave money on the table, especially when you know there's so much need in the community. I just don't, and I understand you're running another round, which I am grateful for. I think that's exactly the right thing to do. But I wish we had captured it in this first round so there wouldn't have been this delay that's now going to be built in to spending these dollars. So maybe something related to the application or to who the applications are going to, the understanding of what the dollars are for. I mean, all of these things play into the requests that we get. So I just want to say that as well. I want to double down on that. The other thing that I've been thinking about as I've moved around in the community, during ARPA, we had a lot of activity related to eviction prevention, and we spent a lot of money keeping people in their homes. I know that need still exists, and the ARPA dollars do not exist for that purpose. And so I just want to get folks thinking about if there's any way to, because we've been creative with CMHA here, I wonder if there are creative ways to think about eviction prevention dollars coming through some of these other funds. It's been a priority of the board. We actually outlined it in one of our funding rounds, but I'm always looking to try to be more helpful when it comes to eviction prevention. We've got great partners. We know with more money, they could save more people.
Yes.
And so I just want to throw that out there to see if we can think about that in addition to some of the other things, the tenant-based rental assistance, which I support. It's kind of along the same vein, actually, but want to think about eviction prevention too, particularly if we're not getting enough requests that qualify for the dollars.
Yes. And to speak to your point, there is opportunities even with legal aid, Housing Our Future. I'm a member of that organization or that committee, and it has been raised a few times on those meetings that there is a need for Hamilton County, not outside of the city of Cincinnati, funding, and home can be utilized like that. Capacity might slightly be an issue there, so Angela can speak more towards that, but that is something that has been suggested.
So this pot of money from home is not eligible for tenant-based. It's eligible for tenant-based rental assistance, but it's not eligible for any sort of eviction or foreclosure prevention, unfortunately. But we can use CDBG for those purposes. But this money has to be to create a permanent affordable housing unit based on a bunch of other criteria.
Understood. And I'm not, that's why I'm saying just kind of broadly, generally, as we think through these different funding sources, if we can start thinking more about eviction prevention, and because we've got the partners in place. But I completely appreciate the response about the limits of the funding that we've got in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Is that it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about the number of applicants, which is really different. When I first came in 19, and I remember we had like 2 entities that would apply, and so now we have so many more, but we certainly can do much more to get different people to apply in different agencies. So keep up the good work, okay?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So next we have Community and Economic Development Department 2026 Annual Action Plan. Angela Rahman.
I am also not Angela Rockman, but thank you, Angela, for letting me speak on your behalf today.
Right.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Katie Valley, and I am a senior program manager in the Community and Economic Development Department. Today, I'm presenting an overview of our annual action plan for program year 2026. So starting with a brief overview of the funding and the annual action plan, our department is responsible for administering the county's annual allocations from the HUD Community Planning and Development Office formula grant programs. And typically this totals around $5 million. These formula grant programs include Community Development Block Grant, known as CDBG, Home Investment Partnerships Program, known as HOME, and Emergency Solutions Grant, known as ESG. Together, these grants expand economic opportunities for people of low to moderate income, create suitable living environments, provide decent and affordable housing, and address homelessness needs and services. You may recall some presentations and public hearings a year or so ago regarding our consolidated plan, which is required by HUD every 5 years to outline our funding priorities. This document includes housing, community development, and economic development needs and priorities that are addressed with our annually allocated funds. We're currently in year 2 of our active consolidated plan, so the actions, activities, and specific resources that are in this proposed 2026 annual action plan align with those priority needs and the specific goals that are identified in that broader consolidated plan. Our department administers HUD funds to 43 participating local governments in Hamilton County, with activities ranging from jurisdiction-specific projects like community-focused street reconstruction to countywide programs administered through our competitive RFPs. So moving on to the process of developing our annual action plan, our public comment period is active through July 6th. Written comments for this plan can be submitted via email to Angela Rockman, our administrator, or submitted to our department office at 138 East Court Street. We have 2 upcoming public hearings, one on June 4th, which is this Thursday, and another on July 2nd, both at 10 a.m. in this room. And we're aiming to submit a final plan for board approval in mid-July so we can submit the plan to HUD by the mid-August deadline. And this deadline of August 16th is required by HUD. It's 45 days prior to the start of our program year. Our citizen participation process for this plan includes several different steps. We did publish a public notice in the Cincinnati Court Index as well as on our website, and we're requesting feedback and input from stakeholders throughout the county. As mentioned earlier, this public comment period includes 2 public hearings that'll offer the opportunity for citizens to provide direct feedback on this plan. We're also accepting written comments directed to our administrator via email or in person at our office. And we have a posted draft version of the plan on our website, and a physical copy can be requested by visiting our office here. So before going further into the plan budget breakdown, I just wanted to share a quick overview of our 3 main funding sources. The majority of CDBG funds support low to moderate income persons with eligible uses like acquisition, demolition, improvements to public facilities like parks and senior centers, improvements to public infrastructure like streets and sidewalks, public services by nonprofits, and economic development activities like job creation and retention. HOME is the largest federal block grant to state and local governments designed exclusively to create affordable housing for low-income households, and it can be used for costs like acquisition, demolition, rehab and new construction, soft costs, pre-development costs, and development fees. Our annual affordable housing RFP prioritizes projects that are located in our participating local jurisdictions, as mentioned in the previous presentation. The ESG program is designed to assist people after experiencing a housing crisis and/or homelessness, and our ESG funds are passed through to Strategies to End Homelessness. They're the lead agency for our continuum of care. These funds help coordinate services like homelessness prevention, emergency shelter, and housing solutions, ultimately working toward the goal of ending homelessness. Our 2026 annual action plan includes a budget for these 3 funding sources, CDBG, HOME, and ESG, and includes a total of approximately $5 million. We've been allocated about $3.4 million in CDBG funds from HUD, and we anticipate receiving about $55,000 in program income. This has a total of nearly $3.5 million for CDBG as outlined in this budget here. So as you can see in the top line item, our planned CDBG funding includes community-specific project activities. These would be things like street reconstruction in our participating local governments. And these projects were determined by the respective communities with their own individual public hearings. The next section includes our community-wide programs, with funding for Housing Opportunities Made Equal to conduct fair housing services, homeowner housing programs with Council on Aging, funding for our Microenterprise Advancement Program, and funds for competitive RFPs that support things like our nonprofit services, facade improvement, and economic improvement programs. Planning and administration is the final line item here, which includes a 20% cap of our annual allocation from HUD and funds any planning activities as well as general administration by department staff. And this is outlined here in this graph. As you can see, our community projects in individual jurisdictions make up 29% of the proposed CDBG funding. Countywide programs like our RFPs make up 51%, and our planning and admin costs are at 20%. Moving on to HOME, we've received a total allocation of $1.3 million in HOME funding for 2026 to be split between CHODO programming, affordable housing development activities, and administration. For the first line item, HUD requires that we set aside a minimum of 15% of our annual home allocation for a CHODO, which is a community housing development organization. A CHODO is a nonprofit, community-based entity that has staff with the capacity to develop affordable housing for the community it serves. And to qualify, it has to meet certain requirements regarding their legal status, organizational structure, capacity, and experience. And just for context, in the past, we've been able to designate organizations like Habitat for Humanity as our CHODO. As you can see in the second line item and on the pie chart, 75% of our HOME funding is planned to support affordable housing projects with our annual affordable housing RFP. And then lastly, HUD sets our HOME admin cap at 10% of the annual allocation, and that's outlined here. So for ESG, we've received a total allocation of around $333,000, and this will be proposed to be split between rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention, as well as administration. So the majority of funding, as you can see in this chart, is proposed to support that rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention through strategies to end homelessness. This program is administered by the county's continuum of care, and it's currently operated by Strategy. So there's that partnership context. And finally, HUD sets the ESG administration cap at 7.5% of the annual allocation, and that's reflected here in our budget. So overall, this action plan describes what will be undertaken with our CDBG, home, and ESG funds, with programs and activities that align with the priorities of our consolidated plan. And in terms of timing and next steps, as mentioned previously, our public comment period is active through July 6th. Written comments can be submitted via email to our administrator or submitted to our physical office at Court Street. We've got 2 upcoming public hearings on June 4th and July 2nd, both at 10 a.m. in this room. And we're aiming to submit a final plan for board approval in mid-July so we could meet that August deadline. At this time, there is no action required by the board. However, after any public comments have been received and considered and incorporated into the plan, we do plan to present a final version for the board's approval in mid-July, again, so we could meet that later deadline for HUD submission. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I think I'll open it up again. You mentioned a little bit about CHODO, CHDO. Can you tell me a little bit more about them?
Sure. So that is a HUD designation. It should be an entity that's a nonprofit that serves Hamilton County. They need to meet certain legal requirements in order to be eligible to be considered a CHODO. But one of HUD requirements for our home funding is that we need to have a set aside of 15% of our total home allocation for the year to go toward a designated CHODO. So as part of our affordable housing RFP that Tanya just walked through, part of that is identifying a CHODO to support our annual affordable housing projects.
Okay, thank you. And I also heard you say the majority of the funding is going toward homelessness. And I think the majority of the funding, to me, looks like it's going to planning and administration. I am not happy with what these graphs look like.
Okay.
I know we can do a 10% cap on planning and administration. We can do a 20% cap. That doesn't mean we have to go to there. And I think it was a 7.5% cap on another one. And so I'm looking at this. I mean, community projects, 20% countywide, I said it, community projects, 29%, countywide programs, 20%, planning administration, 51%. That's not okay. It's not okay. I know you have to administer a lot of programs. We go back to CDBG, and so we have planning and administration at the bottom, 680,000 to administer these different programs. We certainly have to administer them, but because we can do a 20%, we don't have to do a 20%. And that would reduce the amount of money, and we can use that toward the programming itself. I've mentioned this a few times before, not this year, but the planning and you look at ESG allocations, rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention, 7.5% of the money and 92.5% administration. That's not okay with me. And if we can reduce the amount of administration, and I know you have to plan when you work on all these projects, I have certainly, but I just don't understand why the numbers are so high on every project that we're thinking about. And of course, the federal government gives us a cap, but we don't have to use it. Yeah, we can do 10% instead of 20, and they'll leave more money for homes or whatever.
Absolutely.
So that's just where I am on it. So, Vice President Reese.
Thank you. The CHODO, who have we designated that in the past?
In the past, it's been Habitat for Humanity. I believe that HERC has also been designated as a CHODO.
I think that's important, their names,
Yes.
because I want to see how much total we're giving to these entities. Because if they're doing the Chodo, then they're getting some other money over here. We need to know, that is. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was the public input. So the first one is this Thursday or this week. And the next one is during 4th of July weekend. Most people get out of town that week. I believe the 4th is going to be on a weekend. So a lot of people will be gone. So I just want to make sure we have maximum input before it comes back to us. And then we're on a summer schedule too. Some of us are in and out. So I know we kind of went to the wire, but I do have a problem with July 2nd being one of the dates. So wanted to say that. The other thing is how we get the word out. And I was looking at, we were talking earlier about the lack of maybe keeping money on the table, so we need to figure out a different way to maybe get the word out. I know that I had hosted at Corinthian, the National Day of Prayer was an action, and certainly you all came, but then there were a lot of people that might be eligible for this that were there, churches, pastors, people who had questions. They have nonprofits, they have other. So it was a great thing because on both ends for the county, relationships, for them, they're doing this work, how to get in on it. And remember, I said the people who for 200 years that were they've been in. And the people who don't know, they've been out. So I would like to just see what we're doing to really get the word out. I know we got an email list, but we just got to figure out how to get it. There'll be more people participating. I'm not saying they're all eligible, but there'll be some that are, because the world has changed and a lot of cuts have been happening. So whenever we have resources, I really like a wide net. And that's why, Small Business Day and the Senior Day, a wide net. And I'm here for so many people like, oh man, I've been here my whole life. I didn't know none of this was available. Versus the smaller thing of come up here. And I don't even know why we would have a meeting up here. I think the meeting might need to be in Bond Hill at the central campus where people can have free parking and they can get to it versus coming down here and, trying to park and the city's aggressive on getting tickets out, so maybe we need to go. I'm just saying, let's really cast a wide net. Are we promoting this? Is it on the radio? Is it text messaging? What is it? So everybody can say they had a chance to know about it. I just would like to see that. But July 2nd would be a terrible time, and I would just recommend that get changed. The other thing is some of these entities that are getting a lot of the CDBG money, we need to get out who they are so that they know that this came through a vote of the board. And, but other than that, I know that some other questions have been raised, and I am certainly interested in answers to those questions. But again, I just want to make sure that the component of getting the word out and identifying exactly who we're talking about would be great. So those are my comments, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse. Okay. As far as July the 2nd, I don't have a problem with it because we do have a meeting on that day, and that gives us a month to try to get people mobilized.
We do not have a meeting that day. I know I made sure we weren't going to meet. No meeting.
We don't have a
July
meeting
2nd.
on that day? Okay.
You'll be there by yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll look at a different date anyway then. Okay. Very good. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. All righty. Any comments, any more comments or to come before the board? Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Thank you.